fuel to the Dyna? Don't mind if I do. Hello fellow kaiju fans, it is Godzilla Productions TV, and today I'm going to be reviewing Ultraman Dyna. For as long as I can remember, I've always heard about just how great of a show Ultraman Dyna was. Well, back in January I decided to give it a watch just to see what was so great about it. And boy did I. Ultraman Dyna has some of the best stuff I've seen from this franchise. And I've got to tell you why. It's mainly the finale. And the movie. But it's got other stuff too. Captain and Vicky. I absolutely love this guy. He's always yelling at the team to keep them in check. Sometimes his hot-headedness gets the best of him. And it's not in a he's mean and getting comeuppance kind of way. He just has such a low tolerance for people messing around that when they do, he feels a rumble deep down. Eventually it overtakes him and he starts screaming at them, forgetting he's got the bunny slippers on. He's probably the funniest character in the show for me, but this isn't just why I love him. He's also pretty wise. He's been on the battlefield the longest, and it really shows in him that he's been through a lot. Like the time he accidentally got his colleague killed, which we see in a flashback. I think one of the best examples why I like him so much comes from episode 34, when he's teaching one of the members about sacrificing the few to save the many, and in that very episode, he becomes one of the few. It's a very tense episode, and I think the captain's reaction to the situation is very respectable. He knows what he needs to do, and he does not throw a fit. I also really like the episode right before that, where we meet his daughter. They obviously don't have the best relationship because he likes to yell a lot. So she takes up weird roller skating. I don't know if it's a Japanese thing. I swear to God, half the time they're throwing in the weirdest stuff in this show and just play it off like normal. I don't know. Anyway, by the end of the episode, the relationship isn't exactly fixed like you'd expect. He still yells at her. They've just come to terms and that's just how they are. Ro is a great character that plays off Asuka very well. The constant teasing of each other was always very funny to watch. I've heard people say her love for Asuka at the end of the show is very forced and that she showed no interest in him during the show. They often use episode 46 as an example, where we see her supposed real love interest. I hate to break it to you, but she treats that guy exactly the same as she does Asuka. I wouldn't say her love for Asuka was forced. I'd say the inclusion of this doofus was. Kohota, probably the most serious of all the characters. He reminds me a lot of the captain, just without all the yelling. He's more collected, yet just as wise. I like when we see him being recruited and he tells the old vice captain of Guts that he looks up to him. And the old vice captain just waves it off like, okay buddy. I always love when they show the wiser, more experienced characters at their beginning. You could see that he looked up to the guy and that made him how he is now. I really like this character and how you can tell how much the captain relies on him and trusts him. Like in episode 34 when the captain's trapped inside the belly of a monster and he puts this guy in charge. Because of how he handled the situation, the captain appoints him vice captain. Funny fat guy! Funny fat guy! Funny fat guy! Funny fat guy! I love a funny fat guy. I mean, his name is certainly true. He is pretty funny. He actually reminds me a lot of Ide from the original Ultraman. They're pretty silly, but they ain't a fool. They also have their fair share of serious moments too, like in episode 40 or the finale I keep bringing up. Of course, they're also the inventor of the team. I would say the only difference is one is fat, but in his later years, yeah. Mai is a fun, silly character that I really like. She doesn't do too much most of the time, but when she does, it's usually pretty fun. Like in episode 5 when she goes with Asuka to meet his old pal from the baseball days. Something I like about her character is that she's not usually part of the action, but when she is, they always show her determined to help. I think it all starts in episode 26 when she needs to go into a base that's about to self-destruct to save the team. After Ro gets her to do it, she's more confident in situations like that, and they really make it a point to show that. For example, in the movie, they show her going to help the fight against Deathfacer with a bazooka. Korea, I think is how you say it. He's probably my least favorite member of the team. He's very bland and doesn't have much personality, unlike the rest of them. However, he does get a few episodes of his own, like when he goes and investigates his old professor, or when he gets possessed by the Supreme Ruler who sleeps on the moon! Those episodes were both kind of bland though. Surprise, surprise. Hanjiro, cute little dog cat flying thing. I like him. Only thing I have to say about him is I wish he was in the show more. He was actually absent for a lot of it and only showed up in the background a few select times. Asuka is one of the best, if not the best, Ultra host of all time. If you ask me, of course. His character is incredibly fleshed out and he's just lovable to begin with. You see a character you already like a lot go through so much and it just makes you love him even more. I love his story where he strives to reach the legacy of his father. Father-son stories are always very good to me, having to live up to the name of someone like they're a very distant figure, yet they're actually very close and care about you. It led to some interesting episodes where he tries to do what his father did, like in episode 29. He's assigned onto the Zero Drive Project, which is the cause of his father's disappearance. He tries to match the speed his father went, but he ends up screwing everything up in the process. Of course, if you've seen the end of the show, you know exactly how this is brilliantly resolved. I also really like that not only does he have to live up to his father's legacy, he also has to live up to Tiga's. I think this is incredibly well done in the movie, when he goes and asks the old Gus captain what Daigo was like, so he could be more like him, as he believes he isn't worthy of the power of Ultraman the way he is now. Once again, if you've seen the show, you know exactly how this is brilliantly resolved. Asuka also had to learn the lesson of not running away and giving up, which was a very powerful arc as well. Seeing him running down the street with the instrumental of the opening playing in the movie, oh, it was a legendary moment. Finally, the selfish and self-centered Asuka making the ultimate sacrifice at the end of the show is something I will never forget. It really shows how much he's grown throughout the show. I really love the monsters in the show, and I especially liked how they often reference monsters from the original Ultraman and other shows. For example, Zamboyu, who was clearly a reference to Dodongo from the original Ultraman. He also had this little zombie guy who was clearly a reference to the mummy from that very same episode. There was also Sodom, a clear reference to Zambalon. Neosaurus, a reference to Jiris. Garon, a clear reference to Data and Garamon. Neo Geomons, a reference to Gamora. And Bozap, who was a reference to Bemsar from Return of Ultraman. There was also generally just some really cool monsters, like Raikubus, Maricula, Queen Minera, Deathfacer. Ultraman Dyna is a phenomenal Ultra. I've always been a fan of his design. He just looks so streamlined and powerful in each of his forms. I especially like his head. He's got the Ultraman C-type face, which looks very well on him, and he's got his crystal up on his head, which looks very modern and slick. Flash specifically has a perfect blend of the other two forms in his design, and I like it's the only one with the Dynatector. Miracle looks very clean with his thin blue lines. I've heard that the large amount of silver makes him look very agile and lightweight, which matches up with his fighting style, and I agree. As for Strong, he is the definition of cool, sporting a lot of red. I've also heard that the amount of red on him makes him look very heavy, which also matches the form, and I agree. I also really like how the form mostly lacks energy abilities and focuses more on being strong and using martial arts. As for Dyna himself, I really like that he's a mystery and we don't really know much about him and where he came from. Except in a novel where it says that it's Asuka's dad. It's a little weird, he just becomes his dad. The music of the show is simply amazing. That opening theme is incredible. I've listened to it countless times. It gets me hyped up and it makes you feel like you could do anything. As for the end songs, there's You Alone I Want to Protect and Ultra High. You Alone I Want to Protect, I wasn't very fond of at first. But after hearing its send-off in episode 26, oh man, I fell in love with it. And in the finale, if you know, you know. And Ultra High, it's pretty good. I know it's pretty divided in the fandom whether people like it or not, but I like it. There's also insert songs for each of Dyna's forms. Flashes and Strongs are alright, but Miracles is a banger. As for the soundtrack, it's a lot like Tiga's. They both have this very distinct sound that you're not going to hear anywhere else, and boy is it crazy good. If I were to have you go listen to any songs right now, I'd recommend Flash, Strong, and Miracle's themes. Strong's especially is a chef's kiss. I'd also listen to the Neo Frontier theme. There is, however, one song that I've grown to hate. Not because it's bad or anything, but because I play it so many godforsaken times. They play it 10 times in one episode, and that is not an exaggeration. If you told me it was more, I'd believe you! For those who haven't seen the show yet, get used to that. Ultraman Dyna is a great blend of episodic and serial. It takes advantage of the 51 episodes by having a story, but not forcing it into each episode and weighing it down. It also allows for the show to be more fun and helps guarantee a good amount of serious and comedic episodes. You're not going to go in expecting every single episode to be a laugh fest, but there are a lot more opportunities where a giggle might pop out. I'll give you 2 examples of both extremes of funny and serious. First, episode 30 with the alien Mijis. I knew the episode was going to be silly as the characters had appeared before, but boy, was I not ready for that. The whole time I just sat there with my jaw on the floor, eyes glued to the screen in absolute awe of what was going on. Each second, the craziest, goofy thing I'd ever seen was topped by what came next. My eyes were looking at that screen until the last credit rolled down. And then, I started to realize its genius. A giggle popped out. And then another, and another, until I was making a sound I didn't even know I could produce. Here it is. Yeah, that lasted 5 minutes. I'm not exactly proud of it, but that's what this show can do to you. Of course, the show doesn't just make me laugh like a madman, it also makes me cry like a little baby. When I was watching that finale, it was tears for all 72 minutes. The show also has a great movie to go with it. It takes place after episode 26 and is probably my favorite Ultra movie of all time. The way they did the scene with summoning Tiga at the end with the kids from Tiga's finale, oh my gosh, it was amazing. As for the Gaiden, alien Mijis are back, Booska's in it, and it's got an awesome monster. Need I say more? Well, I will anyway. It also gives a better end to Hanjiro's story than his mediocre farewell episode. Something I found the show did really well was that it brought back characters from previous episodes or even relatives of theirs to make it feel connected on a whole nother level. Like episode 39, which is not only a follow-up to episode 16 with the villain of that episode's assistant being in this one, it also has the brother of Asuka's rival from episodes 1 and 2. Ultraman Dyna is a show that heavily features space travel, and I think it captures a very good mysterious alien feel whenever they're exploring the planets, like the mysterious trumpets on the moon Servina. I also think Dyna is an example of a sequel done right. It brings back style, theme, characters, and even moments without butchering them, sometimes even making them better than the original from Tiga. Like the idea that everyone is light. The way the finale handles it, oh my god, it's fantastic. I don't want to spoil it for those who haven't seen it, but trust me, it is so good. Now, after hearing me praise the show for so long now, you might be surprised to hear that there are things that bug me about it. For example, the episodes aren't exactly consistent with their goodness. The show starts to be not as good as it usually is near the end. You could tell they were running out of steam. I say not as good because I don't want to say they're bad, because they are still pretty decent, they're just not as good as a masterful middle of the show. A lot of episodes during that time had something else that bugged me about the show. Sometimes they'll have this really good fight going with a cool monster, cool angles, cool moments, and then they'll have this really goofy moment thrown in there. I get that they're trying to keep the fights fresh as the show goes on, but boy did some of those moments get a little too weird and a little too jarring. Of course, the show does have episodes that I do hate. For example, episode 38. A lot of people say it feels like a fever dream. I say it's bad. I give Ultraman Dyna an 8 out of 10. I can only describe Dyna as a must-watch show. Don't skip any bit of it. It's just that good. Well, you can skip episode 38. I now perfectly understand why this show gets so much love. If you haven't seen the show yet, hopefully this review convinces you to do it, because boy is it worth it. Also, a lot of what I said in this review can be used to explain why I'm a little afraid of Ultraman Decker. Look at everything I said about Asuka's character and try and tell me it can fit into 25 episodes. It absolutely cannot without feeling horribly rushed. A lot of what makes the story so great is all the puzzle pieces fitting together. But if you have to take stuff out to fit the shorter runtime, it just won't nearly be as good. I just hope that they make the character different enough from Asuka so this kind of thing doesn't weigh it down. Well, I hope you all enjoyed the review. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, check out my Instagram, and I'll see you next time. See ya.